Hey, what's going on? My name is Anthony DeRossi. I'm one of the pastors at Keystone Bible Church. We're a multi-congregational church in the Tampa Bay area. And for the next few moments, I just want to offer you a thought of encouragement that might help you in your walk with Jesus for the rest of this week. There's a verse in the book of James, James chapter 1, verse 22. It's always been an encouraging verse, but also one that challenged me. And it says this: "But be doers of the word and not hearers only, deceiving yourselves." It's a small verse, but man, it's just packed full of exhortation. I'm going to make a few notes on this verse so we can understand it, and then I'm going to leave you with an illustration that I think can apply it. First, the original word for hearers, akroates, it's been said that word akroates was used by the Greeks to describe a student who was in university, but who was an auditor. They were an attentive listener, but an auditor is someone who sits down in class with the other students and has the same advantages of learning the benefits from what he hears in class. But the difference between an audit student and a credit student in the first century, but also in the 21st century, is that the audit student has some of the advantages of a credit student, but he doesn't have the same responsibilities. He doesn't have to take the midterm exams. He doesn't need to do the pop quizzes. There's a lot of the advantages, but not necessarily the same responsibilities. There's no homework for audit students. He doesn't have to stay up late and do the reading assignments. He doesn't have to turn in any papers to the teacher to examine his thinking. He's a listener. He's an auditor. But the problem, though, is that at the end of the education, an auditor cannot become a lawyer. They cannot become a doctor. They cannot become an engineer or a professor. Because they're not licensed to practice, because they never did any of the assignments. You see, these akroates, they want the benefits without the responsibilities. They want the credit for being in class, but they didn't do any of the work. They never took any of that work home with them. You see, this is the person, someone who's a hearer and not a doer. They attend church, but they never submit to a church and church membership. They want the benefits of the church without any responsibility for the church. It's a lot easier to date the church than to submit to it, isn't it? This is the person who knows that Christ is the Lord, but has not publicly testified to that relationship through believers' baptism to the watching world. That would be uncomfortable for me. I don't know if I can do that. That means I have to get up in front of people and serve people. That means I have to act and not just believe. That means I have to do something and not just listen. See, now you're catching on. James would say, don't be a hearer, but be a doer also. Just do it. Move from spectating to participating. You see, immature Christians, they want whatever they learn in church to just kind of stay in church. Whatever they read in their Bibles, they want to stay in the Bible. Don't give me any late night assignments. Don't give me any homework. I just want to listen. I want to read. I want to absorb knowledge. Let me give you an illustration about the CEO who had to leave town on urgent business. I love this illustration. So the CEO, he didn't have time to meet with his key leadership or any of his employees in his company before leaving. And so on his flight out of the country, he wrote a lengthy letter, typed it up on his laptop. He informed them that he'd be gone for some time, and while he was gone, they were to accomplish a number of different things. He was gone for a total of 6 months. And without notice, that CEO returned to his company. He pulled into the parking lot, and immediately he noticed the weeds growing next to the building. He had left specific instructions on the landscaping that he wanted done while he was away. As he entered the lobby area, the receptionist, he immediately noticed the dust collected all over the furniture, and the receptionist quickly put her nail file away and sat up straight and said, "Good morning, sir." And he walked right past the receptionist and into the warehouse where some of his staff had put a ping pong table up in the warehouse. The equipment was silent. His staff was involved in what seemed to be a party, and they stopped when they saw him, and they all came over to him, and he stammered out. He said, "Hey, listen, there were things I wanted accomplished, but the equipment's silent. The weeds were growing next to the building. Looks atrocious outside. Staff's playing instead of working the phones. Didn't you get my letter?" "Oh, your letter. Oh yeah, we got it. Man, we made photocopies for every single employee, and we took an entire day off just to read it. Man, what a letter. That was fantastic. In fact, we actually created smaller groups of employees to meet weekly to discuss your letter. It was so good. And some of our employees, they even have parts of it memorized, sir. That is so good. It's a great letter. And then everyone fell quiet under the gaze of the CEO when he just simply asked the question, did you do what I told you to do in the letter? Oh no, sir. See, we're still studying the letter. We didn't do it yet. See, James is commending believers to refuse this kind of dichotomy, this kind of contradiction. He's calling believers to resist falling into the trap of examining the scriptures but not executing the scriptures. To analyze the Bible but not apply the Bible. To read it without reproducing it in our lives. He wants us to avoid this dichotomy. He's calling us to be doers and not just hearers only. So my question for you is, what is God calling you to do this week? Maybe there's a conversation that you need to have with somebody to reconcile or to ask forgiveness. Maybe there's something that you need to confess this week to the Lord and maybe to someone else in spiritual authority. It may mean that you need to grab your towel and get down and stoop low and serve somebody this week. See, God's word is calling all of us to do something this week. The question is, will you do it? Or will you just be a good audit student? I think you know what the right answer is. Well, thanks so much for joining us on this week's edition of Midweek Morning Encouragement. It's been a joy to be with you. Again, my name is Anthony, and if you would like to make sure that you receive encouragement every single week in the middle of your week on Wednesday morning, right to your phone, text MME to the number just listed below here on the screen, and we'll make sure that happens for you. Thanks so much for joining us, and we'll see you next week right here on Midweek Morning Encouragement.